I decided to build a new forge. These are the plans I drew up to get started. They're kind of just a rough idea. I've made some changes to them as I've gone. So to get started here, I'm just cutting up my steel stock, breaking it down into the pieces that I'll need. I'm cutting up 2-inch square tubing here. This can be used to build a cart, and that's what this video is basically going to be. It's just the building of the cart that the forge will sit on top of. So here I'm taking all the 2-inch square tubing pieces I just cut up for the cart, and I'm taking them against the belt grinder, deburring the edges, getting the edges cleaned up, getting them ready to start welding everything together. I'm building a new forge because I decided I wanted a more efficient forge. The forge I'm currently using it's the first forge I ever built. I built it about 8 years ago out of a used propane tank, and it's been a great forge, but there's some improvements that could be made, and I'll explain those as the video goes on. So here I blew up one of my belts. I was working my way up to starting with the smallest pieces of the tubing, going up to the largest, and that was the largest piece I had, the legs, and I let the weight of it get away from me and let it dig into the belt a little too much, and it didn't take much to pop that belt. So here's a 4 foot by 4 foot piece of 3/16 sheet, and it's time to start working on cutting out the pieces for the forge body itself. So on the left there, I was showing all the pieces that I need to cut out and the dimensions, and on the right, I just kind of drawn up a mock-up of the 2 pieces of sheet that I had and how I was going to cut all the pieces out of it. So now I'm cutting them out. So the biggest difference in this new forge I'm building is going to be the burner system. So my current forge has 2 Venturi burners, so they have to be running to draw air in themselves through a Venturi process. The new forge that I'm building will have a ribbon burner, which I'll show you later on if you have an idea what that is. But it's a forced air burner, so I will actually have a blower fan, and I'll be able to control both the air and the propane going into the forge to make it as efficient as possible. Really, you want as much, if not all, of your combustion to happen inside the combustion chamber and not to be, have flames coming out of your forge. That's not a good thing. That's inefficiency.
How much can this flimsy little table from Harbor Freight carry? We might find out. We'll see.
So just like the pieces of 2-inch square tubing earlier, now that I've got all my pieces of sheet metal cut up to the right sizes, I'm just going through and deburring all of them, cleaning them up, getting them ready to start putting together as well. So I talked about the new burner being one of the improvements to the new forge. There's a couple of others. One will be the size is slightly smaller when it comes to forges. Bigger is not necessarily better. The bigger the forge, the more fuel it takes to heat up. And if you don't need the space, then you're just wasting fuel and you're wasting money. The other one is again in the burner. The 2 Venturi burners that I have create hot spots right where they come in. The ribbon burner, as you'll see later on in future videos, runs the length of the forge. It will give better heat distribution. And since I heat treat my knives inside my forge still, that's going to be a huge advantage for me.
Well, I'll be damned. About 30 feet worth of 2-inch square tubing, 1/8 inch thick wall, and over 17.5 square feet of 3/16 plate. And that flimsy ass table held it all. Nice.
So here I realized that I had not cut the openings out of the front and the back of the forge, so I'm doing that. The bandsaw I'm using is actually a wood bandsaw, but I realized I had some metal cutting blades for it. They haven't been great on knife steel, but this low carbon steel cut through like butter. Worked out really well. I was pretty happy with it. Time to start welding, putting it all together. So I used what's left over of my 3/16 plate and some pallets and sawhorses to build a welding table. Don't have any welding experience, so please feel free to make fun of my welding. But limited tools seemed to make it work. So I was pretty happy with how it went. So here I'm drilling the holes that will be used to mount the casters. These pieces of steel are the feet that'll get welded onto the bottom of the cart, and these holes will be for mounting the casters on. So I can roll it around where I need to. Now it's time to start welding on those feet that the casters will mount onto. You'll see it takes me quite a while to get this set up. I was pretty nervous about trying to keep everything square and keeping everything level on the bottom so that the cart would be level. So take my time here getting it set up, and it turned out being. You'll see at the end. When I'm done with the whole thing, I check level, and I'm pretty happy with it. That's my wife's legs making a cameo. How looking good, babe. All right, so after all that, I finally feel comfortable enough to start tacking it up in place. So I take the magnets, get them out of my way as I go along, tacking it up, and then I'll weld it in for good. So here I grab a level, uses a straight edge just to check that it's flush going across. It wasn't perfect. There was a tiny little gap, but it was pretty close, and I was pretty happy with it. So moving on. I decided I'd reinforce the feet. If you remember back on my drawing, it's pretty narrow and tall, the forge itself. So I was afraid of it being top heavy. So I made these feet extend out a little bit to try to widen its footprint, and decided I should probably reinforce them with more of the 2-inch square tubing. Here I got them all tacked up, so now it's time to start welding them in for good. So at this point, the cart's pretty much done being fabricated. There will be a few add-ons for other features of the Forge that I'll decide to do later on. But for the most part, it's done being built, and here I'm fitting on the feet, fitting on the casters for the first time. All right, moment of truth. Time to drop it down on the ground and see how we did. Make sure it looks level, rolls around on the concrete easily. So here I'm dropping it down. So if you catch that, I give a little bit of a smile there. Pretty happy with how it turned out. Everything looks good. Pretty proud of it. All right, so this is gonna be the first video I've ever posted to YouTube. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So if you watched this far, thank you, and if you liked the video, please give it a like. Thanks. See you next time.